All right, it is 6 o'clock. I'd like to call the order of the Woodford County Board of Education regular meeting. It's January 27th, 2025, and we are here at the new board office, aka Old High School. All right.
I would like to turn the meeting over right now to Miss Sarah McCown as she is going to honor Dr. Gormley, former superintendent and former county judge here in Woodford County.
Yes. Our community is mourning the loss of former Woodford County School Superintendent Dr. Joe Gormley, who passed away on January the 9th. Dr. Gormley's 30-year career in education included roles as a teacher, coach, counselor, principal, and a superintendent for 18 years. After retiring as superintendent, he continued to serve others, including as judge executive for 8 years. We wish to extend our condolences to all who knew and loved Dr. Gormley and ask that you join us in a moment of silence to honor and remember him. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCown.
All right. For roll call today, all members are here and in person, and I'm going to ask Reed Sayer to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, which is right behind me.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Do we have any proposed amendments to the agenda? Seeing none. All right. I'm going to turn it over for the superintendent's report. And tonight we have some recognition. So I'm going to ask Miss Sandy Adams to come up. Share a little bit about the new National Board Certified Teachers.
Thank you. I'm Sandy Adams, and I serve as the District Coordinator for National Board Certification here in Woodford County, and I've been in that role for a few years now. I certified back in 2010, and I'm really passionate about this certification. So tonight, we are going to honor some of our newly certified National Board teachers. But first, I feel like you should know a little bit about what they've put into this process because it is intense. They spend many hours completing 4 components. One of them is a test at a testing center on their content knowledge. So if it's chemistry or if it's English, it's that rigorous, almost like what you would do when you first start teaching. And some of these teachers have been out of that for a while when they do this certification. They also do a component on differentiating instruction. They do one on their teaching practices and their learning environment where they videotape themselves, engage with their students, and evidence of their ability to be an effective and reflective practitioner. All of this takes many hours, and it's voluntary to do this certification. They choose to do this hard work. The thing that makes it unique is that it is all about an impact on students' learning and what they are doing with their kids in their classrooms. So not going and taking classes that's not important for what they're doing. So this year, we are not all here. I think we may only have one of them, but I think you all have a certificate for them. So I'd like for you to join me in recognizing we have newly certified teachers, and with us tonight, I know we have Tara Atkins. If you will come forward. Tara teaches at the high school. She's a math teacher, and I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I came too fast. And Tara, if you don't mind to stay up here for a second because Miss Elaine is going to want a picture. Now, I don't know that my others are here. Oh, there's Courtney. Shoo, my reader's on. We also have Courtney Cheney, who is our newly certified National Board teacher. Thank you, Courtney. Courtney's amazing because she teaches the littles, and that's a whole different ballgame with this process. Also, Shelby Kearns, I don't see her here tonight. She is a middle school teacher, but we will get her certificate to her. And Erin Cassimer renewed. She's a music teacher, so every 5 years, teachers have to renew this process, but I have a feeling she's in rehearsal for a musical right now, and that's why she's not here. But thank you, ladies.
Fantastic work. Thank you so much for putting in the extra effort to do everything you do. All right. Now we are on to the superintendent remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Brickler. Chair Brickler, I should say. I want to recognize our new chair and vice chair, Mr. Adam Brickler as chair, Mr. Ambrose Wilson as vice chair. I'd also like to welcome Dr. K.T. Gould as one of our new board members, and Mr. Ambrose Wilson for being back on the board with us. So thank you for looking forward to your service, and appreciate your desire to do so. This is national, or not national, I should say, but Board Recognition Month. So if you look around your table, should have a t-shirt of the new high school. You should have a badge. That badge will entitle you and your spouse or whoever into any district events, no charge. So that badge will work. And then you have a gift from maybe Ross Tarrant, I think it is. Jesse, am I correct in that? So anyway, we really want to recognize you. Now, typically we have Judge Kay come and do a proclamation, and he has done a proclamation, but you got stuck with me tonight. He couldn't be here. So he has asked me if I'll read the proclamation. So here we go. Woodford County, Kentucky, Proclamation, School Board Recognition Month. Whereas Woodford County proudly supports our public schools and our teachers, administrators, staff, and school board members who work together each day to provide a quality education for all our children. Whereas Chair Adam Brickler and members K.T. Gould, Sherry Springate, Ambrose Wilson, and Sarah McCown represent and serve their respective districts and the people of Woodford County on the Woodford County Board of Education. Whereas school boards have one of the greatest responsibilities of local government, and our board members faithfully serve our community with integrity, honor, and a commitment to our children's futures. And whereas January is the time in Kentucky where we recognize the contributions and service of our local school board members. Now, therefore, I, James K., Woodford County Judge Executive, do hereby join my counterparts across the Commonwealth by declaring the month of January 2025 as School Board Recognition Month, and urge all citizens to join me in recognizing and acknowledging the contributions of the members of our Woodford County Board of Education and thanking them for their service to our community. So thank you. That's kind of what my superintendent report, I wanted it to be made up of our recognition. I feel like that's super important. It's a very thankless job, I would say, and really the rewards are what you see when you do for kids. So to me, that's the reward of being a school board member. With that, I do want to touch a little bit on the new high school. Kids have been in there now. We've got 5 or 6 days in there. The weather has prevented us from having, a full week yet, but we've been in there, and I'm just hearing, just great things from our kids. I've got a place I like to go over and hang out, and the kids know where I'm at, and they stop by, and we talk about the cafeteria, and we talk about the new bells, and we talk about things that they really enjoy about their new school. So with that being said, that wraps up my superintendent report, and just so thankful that we were able to do this. We were able to do this for the students and staff of Woodford County. So thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the good news report. And Ms. Springate, I'll start with you.
Thank you. I really don't have anything. I'm just excited that the kids are finally back in school after a prolonged break. I know the moms, the dads, the grandparents, the guardians, the babysitters, everybody's happy that they're back and with the teachers learning, so.
Hello, everyone. This is my first time talking into this microphone, so bear with me. A few things that I wanted to mention is, of course, our kids being in the new high school is such a blessing, and I'm so excited for each and every one of them. They also had their first dance, and I heard from parents that turned out wonderful, and kids were really excited to be in that space. So quickly and having a dance right after. I was able to go to the 7th grade state tournament this weekend and spent a lot of time watching basketball, and our kids really battled hard, won 2 out of 3 games, so I was very proud of them for that. And I spent this morning with the 7th graders when they were doing their recognition, so it was really awesome to see our teachers speak about the wonderful things that our kids were doing and be a part of that as well. So I feel like we are doing really great things across the district, and that's just a little snapshot that I've been able to be a part of recently.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Chairman.
I know I'm dating myself, but when I started on the school board, the first time Dr. Gormley was my superintendent. And he was a powerful person, cared deeply about education, cared deeply about Woodford County, and it was a pleasure to serve with him when I first started. He was a wonderful man, and I send my deepest condolences to all of his family who I know miss him dearly. So I wanted to say that. The good news report that I would really like to shout and celebrate is our new high school. We have 1,300 students there. We have 150 employees who now have the finest that we have to offer. It's heartwarming. I'm sure that the principal will mention that today and the difference that it's made. And I'm so happy that we're there. And Mr. Atkins, I want to sincerely thank you for pushing this over the finish line. You did a wonderful job, and thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. McCowan.
For my good news, I would just like to welcome our newly elected board members. Welcome back, Mr. Wilson, Ms. Springate. I'm excited to work with both of you all. And Ms. Gould, I think I looked at you and I didn't say your name. I'm looking in that direction, but just welcome. I'm excited to work with everybody, and I'm looking forward to hopefully no more inclement weather days, and we can all get back into our routines. Thank you.
And mine's very similar. Very excited for the new board and working together. I think that we're going to do great things together. I really look forward to the partnerships that we have. And like Ms. Springate said, very glad as a parent of 2 kids in elementary school that they're back in school. They're going a little bit stir crazy, so are we. So that's very good to have them back. And sorry.
Not to be repetitive, but I can say from experience that the new school has been absolutely fascinating, and I think everybody's kind of spoken enough about it, but it's worth talking about again. And one thing that I didn't know until last night, but the high school is throwing a talent show February 20th. So if you're interested, it's going to try out our new auditorium for the first time, so that'll be exciting.
Good. All right, now we're going on to the high school presentation. Principal Reed.
All right, well, I'm excited to be here to talk about all the things that are going on at the high school, in the new high school, but also the things we've been doing over the course of the entire year. I will say there have been a few things going on, as you know, so I feel a little underprepared for this, but it's always exciting to be able to talk about the great things our students and staff are doing. As we get in, went a little fast. I want to talk about our big rocks that we came into this year with. We knew moving into the new building was going to be a big task, but we didn't want that to take us off of our mission of educating the students of Woodford County to the highest potential. So we still had our big rocks that we kind of took into the beginning of the school year. We really wanted to launch a mission and vision in our core values. We wanted to connect and coach our PLC structure and tighten up some expectations within how we are utilizing data each and every day at the high school. And then we wanted to have increase our communication flow. So if you have a student at the high school, hopefully you've gotten our newsletters that are coming out. We're trying to make sure that communication flow is going out to our community, but also to our staff, and that's where our Tight and Loose map came out, so that with the turnover of admin that we'd faced in years before I got here, expectations had been varied, so we really wanted to establish kind of what that looked like for our staff, and that was our goal there. So as we talk about our mission and vision for the year, we kind of launched Educate and Inspire. This is something that our leadership team came together and really talked a lot about, but when it came down to it, that's what we want to do each and every day. We want to inspire the students of Woodford County, and we want to educate them to the highest potential. That mission really rallies around our core values of being inclusive to each and every student, providing service opportunities, restoring resiliency within our students, being forward-thinking, leaning on collaboration, and truly embedding the gold standard. That is our PBIS model for our students that we talk about quite a bit. And that's really what I kind of establish everything around. We really want to be the gold standard here in Woodford County High School. I'd be remiss, I know you've probably seen kind of our KSA data that came out back in August, September, October. I believe is the first time we were able to talk about it. But I can't not take the opportunity to talk about the great things that our students and staff are doing. So if you look at kind of over the course of the last 3 years where we were in our state rankings, well, I know we don't want to always compare against surrounding counties, but you know, if they provide a scoreboard, then let's see how we're doing. Is kind of where I stand. So we went from 83rd to 158th in the 2 years prior. And last year, our staff and students really rallied around and took us up to 29th in overall high school rankings in the state. So I'm super proud to be in the top 30 high schools in the state last school year, but even more proud that our reading and math scores were in the top 10. And when you compare all the high schools in the state of Kentucky, we were the 9th highest scoring high school, and that's exactly where we need to be. So I'm excited that we are there, and it truly is about the effort that our students put in each and every day in the classroom, but also the collaboration model that our teachers are using within our PLCs that we'll talk a little bit more about. Some other mid-year highlights that I wanted to highlight from this year. When we looked at our fall semester data from this school year compared to last school year, we had 170 less courses failed. So I think, again, that's a testament to the impacts teachers are making with students each and every day, the remediation that they are taking through our HIVE program. Our behavior referrals also decreased 233 behavior office referrals over the course of the fall semester compared to last fall semester. So I believe our PBIS model is really starting to take hold. Students are starting to understand that gold standard and are feeling more comfortable with the staff and hopefully the administration to be able to be advocates for their school, but also understand the expectations of school. I also wanted to highlight some AP successes we've had over the last school year. Our AP Bio pass rate's up 13%, our Calculus pass rate's up 12%, U.S. Government's up 44%, and U.S. History's up 31%. So big jumps for some of those really hard tests and across the board. And then for the third consecutive year, our AP Literature and the second consecutive year, our AP Environmental Science scores have had a 100% pass rate. So a huge testament to the teachers that are leading those. We are blessed with high quality teachers to teach high quality students in those courses. Some other things I'm really excited to share with you is the implemented structures that we've really been able to tighten up over the past 2 years. BAR, we are in our third year, I believe, of implementation of BAR, and BAR stands for Building Assets, Reducing Risk. This is a program that really targets our 9th grade students, and we work to team out those students and really give them a point of contact within the school so that we can establish that sense of belonging. Through that BAR program, teachers meet once a week to discuss exactly how students are doing in their classroom, any red flags that may be raising, and provide those supports in a systematic and structured way so that every student has the ability to be successful. We know students bring in things, have experiences both inside and outside of school, and this really allows for a staff member to target each and every student and be able to bring them to the table if something seems awry. And over this past semester, our ninth grade failures decreased by 26 students, and our behavior referrals decreased by 54 with just our ninth grade. And I think that's a big testament to the impact BAR is having. We've had school within a school for a few years, and this is really targeted credit recovery program. When we look at students at risk, we kind of look at consistent behavior referrals, truancy measures, and then getting behind on credits are all contributing factors for an increased likelihood of dropout. So we want to put structures in place. So we do have a school within a school program that has two certified teachers. We have one that's acting as an instructional coach and helping us with our Hive program, but really targeting those student needs. We have a special education teacher that runs a RISE program that's really a check and connect program, and instructional assistant in there. So providing additional supports for those students that have evidenced the need for those additional supports. Ms. Tori Hunley's joined us in our Youth Service Center this year, and she's really targeted a lot of group supports and brought some great programming for those students. And we've seen almost 100% success rate in transitioning back to the kind of general education setting from that school within a school program this last semester. So students were able to get credits to get back on grade level, to reach that graduation milestone, or evidence their success. That's why we didn't quite hit that 100% milestone. They were like, I just really need these supports. I found where I belong at school now, and I want to stay in this program. And we want to celebrate. I'm all about kind of that least restrictive environment for students. And then our PLC models really worked on targeting a Tier 2 and Tier 3 remediation and providing that instructional coaching directly to our content teachers this school year. I know the elementaries and the middle school have done a great job at the Plan, Do, Study, Act in years previous, and this is something we really got on board with and rallied around. The CNI department's done a great job of helping me kind of understand this process and really put this in a form that's understandable for our teachers. So this kind of shows the flow of how we walk through that process. It's really about coming together as a PLC, planning that instruction, providing that instruction to students, getting together, evaluating data, and then acting on that data to provide remediation. And that's not just allowing students the opportunity to test again, but true remediated instruction so that they can reach mastery on those skills. And this is kind of just another outline. We've taken that model that we saw and put it into a kind of flow for teachers and PLC teams to work through. And then as we continue through this school year, we're excited to get in the new building, but we still have our continued focus on kind of long-term success for Woodford County High School. Our focuses continue to be on expansion of opportunities. I know we're getting into kind of that time of year where we start looking at staffing allocations, and I know Mr. Asher has shared with you, we're losing some opportunities with our Fayette County partnership, so we're really working towards expanding those CTE opportunities in-house and continuing to spread those arts and extracurricular activities as well. I know, unfortunately, we had to turn some students away last year from our visual arts program just because we didn't have enough teachers in there, and that's not a situation I want to be in again. So we'll really be looking at our staffing allocations and how we can utilize those allocations to really meet those needs of our students. Our PLC structure, we're going to continue through those. Targeted focus on our gap groups. As we talk about our CSIP, we're really going to focus in on our special education students. We have a great team of special education teachers, and we're really working towards getting them in with our content teachers, so that direct collaboration is happening, that our co-teachers aren't walking into a content class blindly, that they truly feel like experts in that content as well. And then it's structured an ongoing system, so making sure we're evaluating post-secondary readiness. That's a huge growth area for us from our last accountability ratings. And to me, that's all about understanding where students are and what opportunities they have, making sure they have a path and that we are supporting the students to get to be successful on that path. And when we're targeting those students and supporting those students, then our graduation rate increases too, because they have that sense of belonging, they have that place they'll be successful. And then we, of course, know we've had a big influx of newcomers this year, which is great for the culture of our building, but we want to provide those systematic supports, and we've been able to work closely with our CNI department for those. One thing I wanted to celebrate is, as we talk about kind of where we are as a high school, we have other districts starting to reach out to kind of see what we're doing. I was able to talk with Campbell County High School's principal, and we've kind of set up a collaboration meeting. They're looking to bring 5 teachers down and just discuss and kind of bounce off some ideas. So we're really excited that districts are turning to us, kind of saying, what are you doing great at Woodford County High School? We want to be there with you. So that's kind of something that's exciting for our teachers as well. And then, of course, I'd be remiss to not talk about the new high school. And we are so blessed to be a part of this and be in this space. Just seeing the consistent flow of students every day with a smile on their face. Seeing the common spaces be utilized by our physics class today as they were able to get out and measure distance and calculate constant velocity in these huge common spaces. I had a coach come up to me recently, and he was like, I'm just blown away that kids want to be here. He was like, you know, they came to practice before, but now like they want to be in the gym, they want to be in the weight room. And that's such a cool feeling for a school administrator when kids want to be in school. And so that's just a huge testament to this project. And I wanted to express my appreciation for you all in making this happen and letting me be a part of this huge milestone for Woodford County. Any questions about kind of what we talked about? Or?
Yeah, Ms. McCowan?
I just have one question.
Yeah.
So with the new high school building, how do you feel in terms of school resource officer support? Do you believe that what you have is enough? I mean, I know the layout is different and it's a great big place. So how are you comfortable with having the one resource officer?
More support is always great. I know Friday we had kind of a false alarm fire drill. Luckily, it was nothing. It just got hit by a ball. But we practiced those type of things, and we were supposed to secure the perimeter, but we were trying to manage some behavior, some unforeseen expectations in that new space because we haven't been able to have that fire drill yet. So there was a little bit of confusion. Things like that are always, Officer Bobbitt and the VPD's done a great job at supporting kind of our parent pickup as we try to kind of reinforce pulling forward and utilizing all that space. I believe Mr. Asher is writing a jingle for us to push out into the community. He could probably share that later. But being able to utilize kind of that needed support in other areas would always be beneficial.
Anyone else? All right. I would just say thank you so much for sharing all the data that you did. I mean, I know having the new high school is going to launch everybody to the next level, but the fact of what you've been able to accomplish and the students and staff and administration so far is really great to see, and hope that we continue to see great things.
I appreciate it. Very blessed, and I appreciate your all support. Thanks.
Mr. Reed, I want to thank you as well for your leadership. I think you've done an excellent job since you've come to Woodford County. You've built a great team. You took what we had and you built a team around that as well. Hats off to you, and not just your administrative leaders, but everybody in the school. You've everybody's bought in. Things are moving in a good direction here at Woodford County. I love having districts and schools come and check us out. You know, I told the commissioner the other day that we don't want to keep any secrets here in Woodford County. We want to share those. I want my open heart surgeon to be as good as if he was from Barron County as if he was from Woodford County. So we got to try to move not just the kids in Woodford County, but the kids in the state of Kentucky forward and make them the best they can be. So thank you for what you do for our kids.
All right. Well, let's continue on with the new high school project update. Mr. Ratliff. It's probably going to be the easier one.
It'll be the shortest one yet, for sure. It's been great to hear all the excitement around it and see all the excitement. It's been a big couple weeks. I'm excited for everybody involved, contractors, school, students, staff, everybody seems to be really excited with the final product. So it's a huge victory and a little bit of a relief. So the total project cost has not changed from last month. The construction cost to date remains the same, a little over $61 million. The total build has changed through December, of course, at $58,450,046.32. That is 96% complete. The majority of that will be issued to you all here in a few days with January's payment. And of course, we hold retainage on all contractors until every punch list item is complete and every closeout document, O&M manual, turnover material, until all that stuff is finalized. So hopefully by next month, all that'll be out of the way. We have talked about in the spring, there will be some exterior touch-up and seating and stuff that you just can't do this time of year. So they've put a huge lick in it. We're trying to keep it to where there's a lot of progress being made, but not an inconvenience to the staff or students. So we're constantly coordinating with contractors on evenings they can get in, and then weekends, and that's how we'll finish it out. And we're pushing to have that as soon as possible. So contingency log remains the same. Mr. Smith and I have been talking about the phase 1 and phase 2, or the high school and the track and field, working on getting all that updated. There will be a large amount of documents coming next month, and most of that is related to the direct purchase orders. There's a I can't remember how many, but there's a lot of direct purchase orders on a project this size. And basically, if the vendor has a balance of 1 cent or greater, that comes back to you, and a lot of them have 2 cents, 3 cents, $3, but it's a lot of paperwork that we have to issue and then wait for them to get it back to us. So I'm confident we'll have all that by next month, and then it'll really show as far as the final numbers on the high school, and we can make the adjustments to both BG1s. So the track and field still ongoing. The weather has been brutal for mainly the concession restroom, the stage we were at, but they were able to get the brick complete, and I'll go through their progress in a minute. But total construction cost to date still stands at $5,424,157.36. Total build to date is $3,878,951.04. That's 72% complete. Through November through January, most being in January, there have been, the January's a projection, of course, because NOAA's not showing the entire report yet. I think it stops at around the 21st, but we're projecting probably through those months 19 weather days, the vast majority being in January. They have been able to finally get the brick complete, so that helps get the building temporary enclosed to where they can condition it and start finishes. So should be at a good point now, but the weather has been very trying, even people getting to work, so with those weather days, assuming it does end up at 19, the revised substantial completion would be March 7th, and the final completion would be April 6th. Contingency log again remains unchanged, and hopefully next month we'll have those BG1s updated, and I'll provide a revised log. Something's on my screen here, Josh, and I don't know how to get rid of it. There we go. Thank you. Josh always knows. Past 30 days, brick veneer has been completed, door frames have been installed, electric heaters installed, circulating fans have been installed, the ductwork is complete, and they have started the exterior drainage and sidewalk at the concession restroom. And the 30-day look ahead, prime and paint, complete MEP rough-in, install and finish gypboard, complete site drainage and concrete, install doors, coaling doors, and install plumbing fixtures. Here's some progress photos of the exterior, all the bricks complete. Still has to be acid washed, so it'll look much better once that's complete. You can see in those pictures the electric heaters are installed, the ductwork's installed, the circulating fans are installed, all interior CMU's done. And that's what I got. Any questions?
When do you anticipate that students can be utilizing the field and the track?
Definitely by those dates I provided in March and April. The track and field might just take some coordination, like we don't want, you know, students and, but the track and field are, you know, the track and field is finished, other than punch lists. Some items will have to take place like in March, right towards the end when the weather's better, but we could look at it if it, you know, but definitely by April, shouldn't be a problem.
I just wasn't sure if the building had to be complete before they could access it or not, so that's why I was curious.
Yeah, that's what we'd have to look at. There is separation, so I think we could probably, that's a conversation we just have to have with the building inspector, but I think that could be managed.
Thank you.
Yep.
I just want to say thank you for all the work you put into this. I know that it was a huge undertaking. It took a long time, and talking about the entire high school project.
Yep.
So all the work that you coordinated, your team, all the contractors, everybody, just share our thanks.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Can I ask a question? I don't know if it's for Mr. Ratliff, but where are the kids that are doing track? Where are they practicing? Are they having to come back here to practice track? Do you know, Mr. Adkins? Because I'm sure it's about to start up.
The only thing I know they're doing right now is lifting, and I may be wrong on that, but they've been lifting in the new weight room. I'm not sure. I know Addie and some of the girls you see are running in town, but I would imagine if they are, they're coming back here. But I don't know that the weather's been, you know, consistent enough for them to be able to do that yet. But
Right. I
I
feel
do
like
know
it
they've been lifting.
starts
So,
around
yeah,
February or something like that.
yeah.
I did talk to Mr. Swingle recently, and we was just kind of talking about the timelines, and he acted like the update I gave him was great, but I mean, we didn't, you know, I didn't ask him specifically when you plan to start, but I got the impression that aligned well, but that, you know, it wasn't really in depth, so that's all I know.
And I don't have a question for you, but I did wonder if we could have the presentation attached to the agenda so folks that aren't here or in the future can go back and be able to see that attachment. Is it attached to the public's agenda? It's not to ours.
I think
So it's attached to the public's agenda. Thank you.
Well, it's on the website. We have the location there on the website where we've done all the updates every month. We've
Yep.
put Mr. Rattles's updates there.
They're usually attached to the agenda also, so that's where I typically go back and find information. So thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
All right. Next, we have our safety presentation, Mr. Wells, and I think Mr. Sutton's coming as well.
Good evening. Dr. Gould and Mr. Wilson, we've been doing a quarterly safety report for almost 2 years now. And so real quickly, those are some of the topics in front of you that we've done in the past 2 years. So if you'd like any updates on those, happy to schedule a time to sit down with you and go over those. Or we can send you the presentations that we've used in the past. So those are some of the topics we've covered over the past few years. Tonight we're going to talk about our tip line, our stop tip line. So I'm going to turn it over to Chief Sutton, and he's going to give you some information on that.
Really quick, Mr. Wilson was here before we created our department, but just to Ms. Gold, since you're new to the board, really quick background. We have a hybrid program. We have the SROs at the high school, middle school are still contracted through Versailles, and the other 5 schools are covered by the school district police department, of which I serve as chief and school safety coordinator. One of the things we do is that we work with our school administrators to help with the risk assessment, which is done once a year. It's about an 85 question questionnaire that we have to pass 100%. One question on there, we have to have a reporting tool for students, staff, even community members can use it or are encouraged to do so. We currently, think everybody in the state pretty much uses this one. It's ran by Kentucky Homeland Security. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. People can leave their information, or sometimes they're hesitant to do so. They can report totally anonymously through that website. On our district website, each school website, and throughout our schools, you'll see signs with that logo. Students can click on a QR code, which they're more techie than we are today. They can make a quick report. Again, it goes to Homeland Security. That's immediately forward to Mr. Atkins, Mr. Wells, and myself. If it's something needs immediate addressing, we'll take care of it. If not, then we usually pass it along to the school administrator to check into if it's something not of imminent danger. Again, students, staff, community members, anybody can report any unsafe situation in school, such as but not limited to bullying, weapons, drugs, or alcohol, etc. One thing they've added is also mental health, self-harm. That's included in there as well. If they feel a need to report, there's a suicide tip line. Crisis prevention's on there, a link to that same website as well for that type issue. Again, they can find the East District website. If you go through, it's especially the high school with older kids, middle school is a little more there's vaping posters, tobacco cessation programs in there as well that you can find throughout those schools. Also, the Safe Schools website, you can go there, it's simple, click on your school, it gets a simple fill in the blank form, and it gets an immediate reporting tool for us. And that's basically it. If there's any questions. Sure.
I'm so sorry. I'm new. I'm asking all these questions. So a little bit of background about myself. I used to work at the University of Kentucky, and I worked very closely with our behavioral intervention team and the tip lines that we use there, our reporting forms and that sort of thing. One of the things that I noticed with the new cell phone policy, and this might be a question for Mr. Wells as well, but because our students are not allowed to have cell phones with them, and I brought this up to some of our school administrators when I went through orientation with my son at the middle school, the QR codes don't seem to be effective right now, where they could just scan because they don't have their phone with them. So is there a way for them to disseminate information to administrators or through the tip line without the use of a cell phone?
That's obviously probably something we need to address. That again didn't start till this
Yes,
coming back from Christmas
right,
break.
right.
So Mr. Wells has any insight on that to exact policy of the student use?
Yeah, well, it's not just, there are other ways besides that as well. We have a link on our website that individuals can go to submit those tips. And we do get the tips. And just a little bit about how they work. As Chief Sutton said, they come to myself, they come to Chief Sutton, they come to Mr. Atkins, and they go to Josh. And then typically either Chief Sutton or myself will farm those out to the particular school, like this is something you need to check on, and then we require that they let us know, what they found out. Unless it's if it's an immediate, like, oh, we need to get on this right now, then we'll make a phone call. That's kind of how it works. But the QR code isn't the only way that it works, so they can also use the link on the website.
Yes, I was sure that there was probably another method, but I was talking about quick, anonymous, in the moment kind of situation versus I've had, a day to think about it, and now I'm kind of maybe concerned about making that tip or that report and that sort of thing. But thank you for addressing that. I just was wondering if there was another method of communicating and reinforcing that use of the tip code with them that the QR code used to be able to serve. Sure. In the moment, being able to access that website. QR codes, of course, are really easy for that. Yeah. So it's just more of an observation than
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
A question,
I really appreciate you bringing that up, and that's definitely a conversation we'll have.
My other question is, and you kind of answered that, but how long does it take? How long is the turnaround for a report to come in? Because of course we're dealing with young folks, so maybe disseminating whether or not it's an emergency situation may not be
it's
in their preview. So
yeah, it's almost immediate. What happens when somebody submits a tip? It wasn't always like this, but when it transitioned to Homeland Security, the tips go there first.
Oh, perfect.
And they get screened, but they have someone there 24/7, staff there 24/7 that are looking at those tips when they come in, and then they send them on to us. So I mean, it's very quick. It's almost immediate, give or take a few minutes by the time someone submits a tip until it gets to us.
And then once you all get to it, how long is the turnaround in-house, I guess, is more of my question.
Yeah, every situation is different.
Right.
Every tip that we get is different. So the time that it's going to take to investigate that, depending on how involved it is. But generally speaking, like I said, as soon as we get it, we forward it on. If it's something that we feel like, this needs to be looked at, there's an immediate safety concern, we'll make that call. But it's a really quick turnaround, even if we're just forwarding it on, because again, we require that they report back to us, their findings of the investigation.
I love that. Thank you so much for answering those questions. I appreciate it very much. I really do appreciate that we have this reporting system. I think it does save lives and change outcomes for sure. So thank you so much.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Up next, we have the instructional and equity report by Mr. Asher.
Good evening once again on this 95th day of school, instructional day. So that means we're approaching the 100th day. So stay tuned for those pictures from our primary levels. That's a big day in elementary school, as some of you may remember. I did want to compliment Mr. Reed and the entire high school staff for the progress that they've made. You heard him say structures and processes in there a lot, and I would attribute the structures and processes that they put in, like PLCs, like BAR, attribute to that success. We had great foundations for that. When he came in and his team, they really built off of that foundation. And as you can imagine, it's very complex to run a high school. Kids are going all different directions and as related to their courses and their work. So it is very complex to put such structures and processes in place. So commend them for doing that. Moving ahead, speaking of, process is our continuous improvement planning approach that you see on this slide here. I use this regularly. We are in the CSIP, Comprehensive School Improvement Plan, and CDIP, Comprehensive District Improvement Plan season. And while it is mid-year and more of a calendar year process, the premise behind that is that you are responding to your data, which we get in the September, October range. So we certainly don't enter this school year without any plans. So that's what we refer to, and you heard Mr. Reed say the Big Rock plan coming into the year. So once you get your data back, then you make adjustments, and you follow that. The CSIP and CDIP are very technical documents and templates that you follow. All the goals are aligned to our accountability. So there's a reading and math goal lumped together. There are the other content areas, the assessed areas. There are gap goals that you have to set. So it's really prescribed on what you have to do there. I make mention of this because the CSIPs, the school level plans, are on the agenda tonight for your review. Those have all been approved by their site-based committees at each school. We do have our principals here tonight. If you all stand, please. Because I did notice, here's one reason I'm doing this. It's at the very end of the agenda. So I want to open up the lines of communication. I would assume you may have questions for them. Thank you, folks. You may have questions for them, but if you don't have them currently, just funnel those through me. I will get those to them, but we wanted their presence here tonight. You may or may not have had time to review those, but I'll ask if there's any questions related to not only their specific CSIPs, but maybe just the process. Any questions on that? I will be bringing the CDIP next month, a little bit behind just due to I had a couple of planning meetings with this CSIP. Ms. McCowan is on that, and from my communications, every day that we've tried to have it, it's been weather. So we'll continue on that, and if everything works out, we'll have CDIP for you next month, which does require your approval. So given the fact that we're here at, when I say assessment results, we're talking about state assessments, but also we have our local ones. So we've been in the process of reviewing that mid-year data. That is certainly in process. And speaking of data, we have talked about this a couple times. You were going to ask, I'm sure. But now that our two members are on, we need to schedule our data meeting. We cover everything from our mental health referrals to our reading results to our discipline referrals, so on and so forth. So it's a very comprehensive look, and I'll open it up if you want to make any recommendations on when to do that.
No, I appreciate you remembering, and we kind of wanted to wait until you guys came aboard just because it also gave you guys time to meet with the school level and get the CSIPs and the CDIP ready. But I'm open to any suggestions next month or March, whatever you guys prefer.
Don't,
Is February okay, Mr. Asher?
Yeah, that's fine.
we can start an email
Okay.
and coordinate for February.
Yes, if you would just put me on those
Yep.
and maybe come up with a few dates, and we'll
Okay.
get it scheduled from there.
Okay. I'll work to get a date from everybody and then communicate with Mr. Asher, if that
And
works.
if you want to wait until later in the month to make sure we have the CDIP, that might be something, because I'm sure that's going to be some data that's going to be included.
It is,
some information,
but I mean,
so-
the data that we're using is off of
It's
our
ready.
assessments that we got back in the October timeframe that I mentioned.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving forward, and I really touch upon this each month, but I specifically want to do it yet again for our new members. You have probably heard about our Portrait of a Learner that we implemented or revealed, let's say, 2 school years ago. And this year, what we have committed to are those paths to the portrait. Because the portrait itself is somewhat abstract. There aren't specific standards on how to be a creative problem solver. Well, I shouldn't say that. There are some embedded within the content, but though we consider those competencies. So over that first year of implementation, it's kind of an abstract idea or thought, or how do we do this? Is it one more thing? And so that's where the idea for the paths to the portrait came up. So CDIP is one thing. It's more on the technical assessment side of things, but there's also strategic planning, and this is what our strategic planning is relying on, are these paths here. And what I mean by that is, let's take deeper learning, for example. What deeper learning is, as the definition says here, it's a broad term, multiple learning methods. So really think about hands-on application, real-world type of learning experiences and opportunities that are part of our Portrait of a Learner. Teaching students and adults, for that matter, to be reflective collaborators, to be resilient learners, so on and so forth. And it's not about neglecting standards. The content standards are still there, but how can you incorporate these competencies? How can they be learning about social studies standards, all the while being responsible contributors, for example? So when I say strategic planning, here's an example. This is still in draft form of what we want this to look like over the next several years. I know, small writing there, and you'll see the finished product, very much a draft. We were just working on this more so today through a number of different entities, whether it be our Woodford Winds group that we have, that are community partners, or our administrative team, so on and so forth. We're putting this all together to really, we've laid the foundation. How are we going to carry this out now for the next several years? So again, just wanted to highlight this as we have a draft for deeper learning, demonstrations, also community engagement, career readiness, tech and innovation. We actually have a planning session coming up real soon here in the next couple weeks to outline all of those paths for the next several years. So definitely a phrase that you'll continue to hear, and like I said, the strategic planning over time that we are committed to. Any questions on that? If not, I'll move to our equity update. We just had our equity team meeting this afternoon. A couple major things of topics, I should say. We have entered into a contract of sorts with, oh goodness, name escapes me. Roger Cleveland, excuse me, Dr. Cleveland. He'll be training throughout the second semester with our administrative team. We've got a session coming up in February, and then with our equity team for a couple months there of March and April, actually March and May, excuse me. The purpose of that, as many of you know, we've partnered with Dr. Banks for quite some time. Dr. Cleveland's much more local. He lives in Lexington, used to work at EKU, and he is the same one that did our training for our bus drivers and cafeteria staff last year. Very well received, great approach to this type of training. Speaking of which, we talked about the language of DEIB and what were his thoughts on that. Where do you see that going? We're seeing some of these executive orders, and he said it doesn't matter with the wording of it, the work should remain the same. So, all the heads around the table kept nodding, and so we're excited to work with him. Speaking of his executive orders, that was a big topic of conversation and how it could potentially impact school. What we're dealing with now is relying on Mr. Morgan here because it is very much a legal matter. And while executive orders are federal level things, what does that look like if they make their way down to us? So what we agreed upon is what we can control. And we can control our school environments and making sure that students are safe, they're heard, and they are protected within our environment. So the committee all agreed with that and just want to stay as knowledgeable as we can. We spent some time looking at specific orders and what the language of those were, but at the same time, we are not lawyers, and so we are very careful in what recommendations we make. So again, just focusing on what we can control. Any questions on that?
I did have a question. I know I've served on that committee in the past, and I'm not sure if we have a current board member serving or if you need a volunteer.
I do. Where did we stand on that? Oh, Ms. Glass, who just went off, was our rep on that. So it is time to recruit a new board member.
I would love to volunteer.
Okay, I will send you that information.
Thank you.
That concludes my updates. Any questions or comments?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you much.
All right. Next, we have opportunity for audience public comment. Do we have? No, I don't think so. All right. Moving on.
Mr. Brickler,
Yeah.
can I ask a quick question about that? I don't know if this is the right time or not, but just because we were talking about public comment. I know previously, the last couple of years at least, the process for public comment had been that you had to sign up and it had to be related to a topic that was on the agenda. And I wondered if there would be any changes. So if somebody wanted to come and speak about something that's not on the agenda, is that something that we would allow? Because I think in the past that has happened. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there and see. I mean, it may encourage, I don't know, more involvement, maybe not. I'm not sure.
What would we need to do to change something like that?
I'll take a look at what you all have enshrined in policy as
Okay.
opposed to what is in the chair's discretion, and I
Okay.
can let you know what steps you need to take.
Okay.
There are always some things that need to be limited in public comment. For example, the board members can't weigh in on personnel matters.
Right.
So things like that you will still want to have a policy that makes some, gives some direction.
Okay.
But I'll take a look at what exactly you need to do, and then, you all can kind of craft what it is you want as a board.
Okay.
For that.
Okay.
And I asked just because sometimes I watch city council meetings or fiscal court meetings, and they're just like, does anybody want to speak? And so
Sure.
ours has just been a little bit more structured. So I just wanted to see if there was any appetite for kind of loosening that a little bit within reason.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me those guidelines and we'll take a look at it and we can discuss it. Absolutely. Yeah. Next, we have, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Anybody have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
I don't have discussion about a specific item, but I would say in the past, we've had, the superintendent would go over the items in the consent agenda, so he would just kind of flip through and say, we have 4 travel requests. It's one for, the special education teacher to be going to California, one for students going to Disney, one for, and just go down through those consent agenda items. And I found that to be very helpful. It also, I think, allows the public to kind of see what's in there and for us to just be speaking what we're voting on. And then if there are any questions, sometimes that jogs questions, or somebody might have a question and that might jog a question. So I didn't know if that's something we might be able to do moving forward.
Okay. I'm going to ask you the same thing, Mr. Morgan.
That's in the chair's discretion.
Okay.
So you as the chair can decide
Okay.
how you want to tackle that.
Okay. And so I'm not going to change anything for today, but so that is something that we can look at, and it would essentially just go through the list of the items that are in it. Okay. All right. Good to know. See, first time as chair, I'm learning new things, so appreciate everybody's assistance on that. All right. So is that all for discussion?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Motion passes 5-0. Next up, we have the regular agenda. And do I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report, approve December financial report? Motion by Mr. Wilson. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. McCowan. And I'll kick off the discussion on this one. For those that don't know, this has been something that's been in the consent agenda for a while. As chair, I wanted to start with a clean slate, bring this back on to the regular agenda. I know it's been something that's been asked many times, so with that, I do want to say I want this to be a respectful, professional conversation. I know that in the past it was taken off because dialogue went a different way sometimes, so I'm really hopeful that we can be very professional, go through this, the reading of the balance sheet by Mr. Smith. If there are questions about it, we need to organize those questions. If it's anything that Mr. Smith cannot answer at this time, give him opportunity to get those answers together and present it at the next meeting. So with that said, I'll pass it on for any other discussion.
All right, welcome new board members. I'll just get started as I normally do. I just go through the fund balances on the balance sheet and read through those, and then I'll answer any questions you have. The general fund ending balance as of December 31st, 2024 is $15,008,411,000. The special revenue fund, which is the grant fund that we have all of our grants in, it actually has a negative balance of $96,926. But as I've stated numerous times, the way the revenue for the grants work is federal grants are spent first and then asked for reimbursement. So the timing is what typically causes us to get a positive balance there. No issues, no worries. We just haven't recorded the cash as of the time that I ran the balance sheet for this period. Fund 21, that's the district activity fund. The fund balance there is $535,968. Fund 25 is a student activity fund. The fund balance is $602,751 there. 310 and 320 obviously are pass-through accounts. Those are the capital outlay in the building fund that we get revenues from. Those are just holding accounts. Those reflect, and I don't typically true those up until the end of the year, but they're holding accounts for those revenues that we transfer out to debt to Fund 400 to pay the debt service on any bond issues that we have. Fund 360, that illustrates the construction projects. Obviously, we've got the high school that we're finishing up, as well as phase 2 with the track and field. The fund balance there is $10,130,063. Fund 400, as of so far this year, we've paid $1,740,835 in debt service. Fund 51, so we started our proprietary funds with our food service fund and our daycare program. So it shows a fund balance of $897,133. I will tell you the inflow of OPEB and deferred inflow of resources skew these numbers. These are adjusting entries that we make at the end of every year with the auditor, and it's not something that is impacted throughout the year. So that sort of skews that fund balance number. The better thing I would probably point everyone to look at for these two particular funds are the revenue control and the expenditure control. And if you take the difference of that number, there's approximately $226,000 worth of revenue over expenses. And so that would mean that the fund balance has a true positive cash balance of $226,000. Same thing with the Fund 52, the daycare operation. There's the revenue control of $1.2 million with expenditures of $296,000. So that fund balance is really going to be right at about $1 million of cash. So, and then lastly is the Fund 53, the Community Ed Fund. So there's a fund balance in there, $23,378,000. So the others are just fixed assets. So those are the balance sheet numbers. I know that there are some questions. A couple of you emailed me questions yesterday, and so I'll let you ask those, and I'll answer as best I can those questions.
All right. Anybody have questions?
I had just
McCown?
a couple.
Yeah.
Do you have some?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for the revenue, for the general fund revenue, are there any changes in what we projected we would receive for this year? And I'm asking that because of the SEEK funding potential shortfall.
Absolutely. So KDE has communicated to all the districts that there's going to be a potential SEEK cut. You know, I think that the overall number they're telling everyone's $40 million across the state. We do not know how much that true impact is to our financials. Probably won't know until March or April. So,
That projection through the co-op on last Wednesday for, and again, they just spread it across every district, which is a guesstimate, was 1.43%. But that, more of a guesstimate than anything. That's kind of what they said, try to run that and see how it would affect you.
okay.
And my other question was about our expenses. So are there any big expenses pending that have not hit yet? Because just when I was trying to do the math myself, it looked like we were tracking below what we budgeted for expenses, but I didn't know if there were just some things maybe that I was not aware of that always come in that have not hit yet.
Absolutely. So, the way our payrolls run, that number is typically skewed. Obviously, on its face, being through December 31st, you would assume that we were approximately 50% through our budget year. In the way that our payrolls run, that if you'll remember, I've tried to explain this in a manner that makes sense. The way most of our staff is certified, obviously teachers, so they don't start until August. So we don't actually pay them in July at the beginning of the year. We catch that up in June, so we run additional payrolls in June. So I calculated the number, we're essentially 43% through our payroll cycles. So I calculated the amount of expenditures, and I took out the on behalfs because the on behalf numbers always skew things, but our true budget numbers with the true expenditures were approximately 45%. So 43% with our payroll, 45% total budget to actual expenditures. So I would say that we're really close to being on track. To answer the first part of your question, I am not aware of anything that would be outstanding, that would be a huge item that would impact that. But I would always caveat that with saying that with my role with the facilities, one never knows when a $50,000 or $100,000 boiler might go out. So, there's always those unforeseens, but nothing I'm aware of right now.
Okay. Thank you.
And then I did have a question, but just to follow up to that, so when you say that we're on track, does that mean we're on track with the September budget numbers?
So we're on track with the budget that was approved in the working budget for FY25. I mean, based on what the expenditures were budgeted for. Yeah.
Okay, and so remind me again, that was a budget where we were going to have our expenses exceeding our income by how much?
That's correct. If I remember correctly, it was going to be about $2 million. That was the revenues. And just to go back to explain, I know one of your questions was about the beginning balance last year being $10 million, $10+ million, and then the beginning balance this year was approximately $8 million. I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the number, so no, I'm paraphrasing. So, last year, FY24, so we were very aggressive with our raises, right? And we did that based on what we thought the SEEK numbers were going to be and the tax numbers. And so we approved the raises, and then the local assessment, the assessments came back really high. And so due to the loss with that less local 30-cent effort that's always caveated with the SEEK numbers, our revenue really went from what we budgeted, not true revenue. I try to be careful about our revenue didn't go down, but what we budgeted based on what we actually received was about $1 million different. And so we gave approximately $2 million in raises, and we lost $1 million in budgeted revenue. And so that $3 million gap caused our fund balance to go, from $10.5 million down to $8 million like it was at the beginning of the year. The same held true this year because, the one thing that we have to be always careful about, and this is always, is that you don't want to ever apply raises to non-recurring revenue, right? Because the expenditures to the salary line are going to recur year over year. If it's only on one-time revenue, that doesn't recur year over year, so you got to figure out where those revenues come every year. So with that said, yes, we'll have about, again, that's based on the budget as it was done in September. As I say every time, I budget conservatively. I underestimate the revenues and overestimate the expenditures, and hopefully that all washes out at the end of the year. And if there are any changes, such as SEEK reductions, we're not in as bad of a position as we would have been had I budgeted everything to the exact letter of what's going to come in and go out. But yeah, we will have more expenditures this year than we have revenues.
So do you still think it'll be like looking at where we are now, like 45% along, it'll be about 2 million, or do you think it'll be more, less?
No,
Any kind of guesstimate?
I think it'll be 1.5 to 2 million, somewhere in there. I think at the end of the year, the contingency will the ending balance will come out really close to what I've projected for the contingency dollar amount. I think it's a little better than 6.5 million, if I'm not mistaken. And as I've indicated previously, the contingency, that's a number, a lot of folks don't understand that number, but that's our cash reserve from July 1 until we get our tax payment in November. It's essentially the cash reserve that we have to operate with from July 1 until that tax payment, taking into account all the other revenues that we get through SEEK payments and what have you through the fall. We need to be around $6 million always, or better. And 10.5 million for a fund balance for Woodford County is too much. It should probably be, and everybody's got their own opinion about that, and that's fine. In my opinion, it needs to be somewhere between 7 and 8 million, 8.5 million, I think is a good contingency amount for us to carry. And if there were something, catastrophic, and I say catastrophic, but from a financial standpoint that were to come up, we'd have the ability to overcome that. So.
Yeah, thank you for that information. I guess probably what I really want to point out and just make sure that everybody's aware of, because we've not had these discussions for a year and a half with the financial reports, that our last fiscal year beginning balance was 10.5 million, and then this year's was I guess, at first we were told it ended at 8 in the audit, but then we were budgeted 7.5 million, but now it looks like it's really 6.9.
Well, just to clarify that, I'm sorry. So it is 8. That was the ending audit balance in the general fund. It was 8 million. So the 6.9 million was the uncommitted, unaccounted for. There was that number the other number you'd asked me about in the email, the 921,000 that's in the committed or unassigned fund balance. So those were purchase order obligations that were tied up as of June 30th in the prior year. So those always carry forward. And so I just have not made the transfer yet. I've been really busy with the high school project, and so I've got to carry that forward. But the $8 million number that was on the audited financials is the true ending balance or beginning balance for this year. So that'll be reflected on the financials when I make that last adjustment.
Okay, and then do you know what the $930,000 for the assigned balance, what was that for?
Those are purchase orders, right? When we do an encumbrance of an expenditure, it goes into that encumbrance line item, and so on the balance sheet, it's reflected in that unassigned fund balance. So it's assigned up to June 30th, and then there's an automatic journal. I'm not going to get into all the journal stuff, but it's the reflection of the purchase orders that it's dollars that we haven't spent yet. We haven't officially written a check, but they're sitting on a purchase order in our financials that we are liable for if that expenditure actually goes through. And so it's just an accounting semantic that we have to go through, but it does have to be counted for in the fund balance. It wasn't spent as of June 30th. So.
Well, and I do think one thing, Mr. Wilson, I don't know if you started this, but in the past, when we had the financial reports, we've had like a summary sheet, and it talks about the expenditures, the revenue, the unassigned balance, the assigned balance, all of those kinds of things. It's just a one-sheet summary, so you know where we are. Because to be honest, I was kind of shocked that we lost $3.6 million in our general fund last year, and didn't really realize it was quite that high. I mean, we didn't have any discussions. There was no indication that we were going to be having that kind of a loss. And so I feel like maybe something like that, I don't know if that's something that I don't know if you started that or you know what I mean? It's really good. I would love for us to have something like that. And then we could still have this report, the 70 pages or whatever, but we would have that summary. So, yeah, and we could quickly tell where we were with, food, if we were on track, last year to this year. It was so helpful. I would love to have something like that again. I don't know if that's something we can kind of bring back. I know we've talked about having the summary sheet, but I think it would be beneficial to the public, but also to the board, because when the numbers change and kind of fluctuate, it's hard to keep in mind, well, we should approve this, we've got money for this, oh, wait a minute, we maybe don't. It's good to have that kind of just real quick and easy one sheet.
If you have examples of what that is, because I know that would have predated Mr. Smith, so I don't know if Ms. Springate
Smith has it.
or somebody has an example of that. That would be good to see, just so that we can talk about that,
Yeah, that sounds good.
what it
Thank
looks
you.
like. Anything else? All right.
Thank you. I'm grateful that we had the opportunity to discuss.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Smith. All right. All those in favor of approving the treasurer's report, approve December financial report?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right. Do I have a motion to approve KSBA for superintendent search selection services?
So moved. Oh, second.
All right. Motion by Mr. Wilson, second by Ms. Springate. And I know that we have some folks from KSBA to talk to us about that and give us a little more insight.
We do, and thank you very much for letting KSB be a part of this process tonight. I am with you virtually. I'm not going to tell you exactly where I am because you'll be jealous. But it's in a climate probably a little bit warmer than Versailles. But Carrie Schelling, the executive director of the KSBA, is with you in person tonight. She has distributed a folder of information about the KSBA superintendent search process. And I am here tonight to detail that for you as much as you would like. I don't want to take up too much time, but I want to be able to answer all the questions that the board members have about this process. I was honored to be your consultant in this process 4 years ago in 2021. It was a bit unusual being in the midst of the pandemic. We attempted to have a public forum that was done virtually. We had about 25 people that logged on to see the comments, but no one wanted to comment. So it was a little bit unusual. I've been part of this KSBA team for 12 years now. I've conducted superintendent searches in 37 different school districts over the past 12 years. And I would be honored to be able to work with the Woodford County School District again, if they so choose. So I know that Ms. Springate and Mr. Wilson have gone through this process in the past, but that means the majority of the school board has not. So I would like to quickly go through what we do at KSBA and how that is accomplished. Our goals for a superintendent search basically is to coordinate a process that is legal, that is done with integrity, that casts a wide net that will result in a large number of qualified applicants for the position of superintendent of Woodford County, and for a result of having the right fit for Woodford County of a superintendent that's going to be employed by the Board of Education. So as most of you know, as a result of the school reform law of 1990, the process of employing a superintendent changed, and it is unlike any other employee of the district. There are statutes that's fairly specific on how that will be done. Various stakeholders in the community will be part of a 6 or 7 member superintendent search committee that will ultimately make a recommendation of a slate of candidates that they would like to have the board to consider as the next superintendent. It's not binding on the Board of Education to employ a recommended candidate of the committee, but probably 95 to 98% of the searches that are done in Kentucky result in the school board employing one of the people that have been recommended by the superintendent search committee. So what is our role and what do we do in a typical search? Well, first, if you go back to the law basically says that this search committee will look at the applications and make a recommendation of that slate of candidates, and the board will employ the superintendent. Now that's a very much a method that most districts do not employ. I do know some districts where the board attorney is given the job of initiating this. He or she will receive applications. They will distribute to the committee, and a couple hours later, he says, "I'll be back with your recommendations." Is that legal? Yes, it is legal. Is it the intent of the law for that to happen that way? And I would say probably not. So what we have done over the past 35 years is come up with a process that is tried and true. We have been in over 170 school districts since 2010, and we've refined our process over the years into a plan that we think is very effective for school districts throughout Kentucky. So if you will go to your folder, I'll quickly go through some of the articles in there. We have our brochure that's in that folder. We also have some items that we had in the last search back in 2021, and I'll refer to them in some of the comments I'll make. So our goal, number one, is neutrality. Sometimes people get the wrong impression of what a consultant does in a superintendent search. We are not going to be pushing any particular candidate on this Board of Education. Our goal, like I said, is to get as many high qualified applicants for this position as we possibly can, and present all of those applications to the search committee. They will go through a process, a very lengthy process that I'll get in a little bit more detail in a few minutes, that will result in a recommended list that the board will then choose from. But we are neutral in this process. Now, I will contact many superintendent candidates asking if they would like to apply for this position. We will distribute every superintendent's office with the information that this job is open, and ask each superintendent to distribute that information to people that may be interested in their district. We will also post it on the KSBA website, obviously the KDE site, and maybe the school board associations of the contiguous states around Kentucky if the board wants to. But that is something that will be addressed in the planning meeting that will be taking place if the Woodford County Board employs KSBA, and that will be done very soon if that is the case. The next thing is attention to detail. I will not be attending these meetings virtually like I am tonight. If I am appointed again to be a consultant with the district, I will be in Woodford County working with the search committee and the board every meeting. There won't be any meetings where people will be meeting without me. That is very important to me because I want to make sure that this process is done legally and with integrity. You know, the Superintendent Search Committee is subject to all of the regulations and laws that the Woodford County Board of Education is subject to. Agendas must be posted. Minutes must be taken of the meeting. The committee cannot go into executive session unless the same procedure is done just like the Board of Education. I will make sure, if I am the consultant, that all those procedures are adhered to. I don't think you will have any concern about that because we will abide by the open records and open meetings law very diligently. so that you won't have any fear that something was done illegally in the district. So I will be with the committee in every meeting. We will have some long nights. We'll be interviewing candidates. Some of those will be done virtually. Probably all of them will be done virtually. And eventually, through several meetings, we'll come up with that list of prospective superintendents that we'll present to the board. Experience, again, we've been doing this for over 30 years. We've refined our process many times over those years, and we think we got a pretty good process. Confidentiality is very, very important to us. We will have, if KSBA is employed, we will have the entire search committee sign a confidentiality agreement with KSBA that they are going to keep all of the information secret. And that is very important. All the applications for the position will come to a secure online mailbox at KSBA. None of the applications for any of the districts that we work with go directly to the district. They go to that secure online mailbox at KSBA. And we think that that preserves the confidentiality of the process, where we can guide that through the process where there won't be any violations of that. I have heard some horror stories over the years of districts that do their own searches, and I'm not opposing that. Some districts do their own searches very, very well. But sometimes they don't realize the implications or the ramifications of confidentiality breaches. And sometimes you will have in those districts applicants who did not tell their board or that they were going to apply for a position until they get to toward the end, and if they're still being considered as a finalist, and then they would tell their board at that time. Sometimes that word got back to the board members before an applicant had the opportunity to talk with the board members. You can imagine the problems that would occur if something like that happened. So we try to guard against situations like that. I work with the board and the search committee a lot on maintaining that confidentiality. We are an organization that supports school boards. We're the only organization in Kentucky where we have your interests at heart. We're not going to represent the candidates. I have a lot of friends that are candidates. I have a lot of acquaintances that are candidates, but they have an organization that supports them. And they do a good job about supporting the candidates. But our function at KSBA is that we are here to support the school board. We're going to be here for you during this process, and KSBA is the organization that also provides the superintendent evaluation after a superintendent is employed. So we think that's a seamless process that works very well. We think it's an affordable process. There's going to be many, many hours that's going to be into this. The cost is in your brochure. And for the public, that cost is $7,000 for the entire process. And that's all encompassing. We will, if you employ KSBA, come up with a plan that is specific to Woodford County. I know last time we had a public forum. Not all districts have public forums in their searches. Some do, some don't, but the price will not change. It's one price for everything that we can come up with. We have a guide that we use for this process, but also we listen to the board to see if there's any modifications that the board wants to put into their search. So if you look at the other handout in there and look at the map of Kentucky, you see the blue shaded districts. That's all the districts that's used KSBA since 2010. You see there's a lot of them. So what would be the first steps in this process? Well, after the contract is signed with us, what we do is schedule a planning meeting with the board. And that planning meeting, we start going over things like the timeline. When do you want a new superintendent to be named in Woodford County? And then we back up from there with all the meetings and the dates of those meetings. So we adopt a timeline. We also discuss criteria for the superintendent and how that will be determined. That criteria is very important for the consultant because that will keep the superintendent search committee in line with what the board wants as a new superintendent. If I am the consultant with your committee, and let's say a committee member starts getting off center a little bit, says we need to have a new superintendent, I'll fire the basketball coach or fire the football coach or something like that. It is my job to bring that committee member back into what the function of the committee is. And I will refer them back to the criteria that the Woodford County Board of Education established and say, this is our goal. It's not here to do anything of that nature that you spoke of, but this is what the criteria is that has been adopted by the Board of Education, and that's what we're going to stick to. So we will discuss how you arrive at that criteria, whether you're going to have surveys, whether you're going to have public forums, whether you're just going to use your experience as board members that have been elected by the Woodford County citizens. All of that will go into determining what the criteria will be. I have a copy of the criteria that your previous board adopted in 2021. That is in your packet. Fairly short compared to some districts. When I did the Kenton County District, their criteria was a couple of pages. But there's no right or wrong way to address that. Sometimes brevity is better. So we will discuss that. We will adopt eventually the advertisement that will be posted throughout Kentucky, as I alluded to earlier. And we'll discuss the scope of the search, whether you want to advertise in other states. We would be discussing all that. Also, we'll be working with the contact person. I know last time I worked with Angel Cooper about setting up the process of the search committee. And that will be starting immediately after the planning meeting where the dates have been confirmed. So those are what we do. If you go to the Woodford County Superintendent Search Timeline page that is in your packet, that sort of goes through what we do in these meetings. If I talk about most of those, I do have the minutes of the training meeting also in your packet. That shows you the details of how we maintain legality in this search and the topics also that we addressed during the training session. And then the process, as you see there, that the committee will go through maybe 5 or 6 meetings. We'll be discussing each and every candidate, and that is important because that's what the law stipulates, that the search committee has every application that they will go through, and there's lots of information in each one of those applicant packets. And then eventually we'll have a process of choosing people that the committee wants to speak with, asking the questions of selected applicants that the committee members came up with. We don't use a set of canned questions in our virtual interview of selected candidates. The committee themselves come up with the questions that are direct to Woodford County. So we don't use a set of canned questions that's been used in another search. So, and eventually we will meet back with the board with the committee will present a list of recommended candidates that they would like the Board of Education to consider in their search. You know, like I said, at that point, the ball is in the court of the Board of Education, and they choose who they want to speak with in interviews, and we go forward from there. So I know I spoke very, very quickly about that, but I know you've got a long agenda tonight, so I have also a list of frequently asked questions and the responses to that I put together for the board tonight. So I will entertain any questions that you have about this process. I'm sure you have some.
Does anybody have any questions? Ms. McCowan?
Yep. One of the questions I had, and I think I just saw the answer in the frequently asked questions, but I just kind of wanted to say it out loud. So when we're talking about the search or the screening committee, and we talked about community involvement and things like that, when we say community involvement, that means teachers, principals, parents of students. It couldn't just be, for instance, a community member who was interested in serving on the committee that does not have a child in the school.
That is correct. That search committee is dictated by law, and it's very specific. There have been in the past districts that's asked the Attorney General if they could modify the search committee, and that came back no. The statute is fairly specific in the language that the General Assembly used at that time, and it's 2 teachers selected by the teachers, 1 principal selected by the principal, 1 parent selected by the presidents of the PTA or PTOs, 1 board member selected by the board chair, 1 minority parent, and that will be a procedure that will be determined by the Board of Education. Who did I leave out? 1 classified member chosen by the classified employees of the district. So when I said community involvement, I was speaking primarily if it was not one of those 6 or 7 people, the community involvement will be providing input on the criteria of what they would like to see as a superintendent in Woodford County. But being on the committee is very specific and has to be those specific 6 or 7 people.
And just one more question for me. So when KSBA is working on kind of messaging and posting the position and call for applications, are there some specific efforts for targeting diverse and very, wide net, so we get lots of diverse candidates and applicants and folks to consider?
I think we have, over the years, the diversity of our applicants has increased tremendously. We have, and I don't know if it's any concerted effort on our part, but we have a lot more female applicants now than we did when we started this process, because we have considerably more number of female administrators now. But we will, in our discussion with the board, if they want specific districts to be targeted for diversity, then I will make sure that the information gets to those specific districts, maybe more than just the email to the superintendent saying that I wanted that distributed to all their interested applicants. So yeah, we would have that discussion of how that would look if the board wanted to get more specific. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. And there's a couple of different agencies in Kentucky that represent the interests of other people, and we will make sure that those agencies got that information too.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any questions, but I do have an observation. I've had the privilege of working with KSBA before on superintendent searches. There's probably nothing more important that we do than the selection of a superintendent. Mr. Martin laid out that it's very there's statutes you have to follow. It's a very extensive process, and I would strongly recommend using KSBA again to help us in this most difficult and important assignment. I strongly endorse them.
And I don't have a question, but just for general information, we are having our KSBA conference coming up soon, and Mr. Martin usually has some sessions, and so I think that it's very nice as a board member to be educated and to have that training time to be able to ask questions of him. in general about the process and how things work. And if you have any confusion or any questions, he's always able to answer those.
Thank you, Ms. Springate. And yes, I will be presenting on Saturday afternoon at the KSBA conference in February. And there'll be a number of districts there that will be represented. And like Sherry says, it's good to hear the questions and comments of a variety of districts that's gone through the process and those maybe like Woodford County that are going to be going through the process again.
Thank you very much. And for my part, as one of 3 board members that have never been through a superintendent search, I think it makes sense to use the expertise that you offer. And I really appreciate the timeline because, as we know, Mr. Atkins is retiring in June. So this timeline would be very helpful in organizing our efforts as we go through this process. So, anybody else have anything before we vote? All right. All those in favor of approving KSBA for superintendent search selection services? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brickler, and I'll be contacting you probably in the next day or two to try to set up that planning meeting
Yes.
to get going.
And I'll coordinate that with everybody on the board as well. It's going to be moving fast. Thank you so much, Mr. Martin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schelling. All right. Do I have a motion to accept notification of personnel matters?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right, motion by Mr. Wilson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. McCowan. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 5-0. Do I have a motion to accept notification of payment of bills?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Wilson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. McCowan. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. Do I have a motion to approve minutes of the December 16th, 2024 board meeting?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Motion by Ms. McCowan. Do I have a second? I'll second it. And any discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not opposed, but I will abstain from voting on this issue.
Me as well.
Okay. And just so everybody knows, they're abstaining. They weren't board members at the time that that meeting happened, so for them to abstain from voting for those minutes makes sense. All right. So motion passes, I guess 3-0 with 2 abstentions. All right. Do I have a motion to approve Cumberland Family Medical Nurses stipend?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Motion by Mr. Wilson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Springate.
Yes.
All right. And I'm going to ask Mr. Smith and Mr. Wells to
I
share any, or do you want to share it? Okay.
Basically, it's
Yep.
Cumberland Family Medical is now our medical provider across the district, and they wanted to offer all their nurses, not just in Woodford County, but the surrounding districts as well, that they partner with, a $4,000 stipend. And basically, this is just approving that it funnels through the district.
Okay.
No cost to the district.
Perfect. All right. Any other discussion on that? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. Do I have a motion to approve fiscal year 26 draft budget?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Wilson. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. McCowan. And Mr. Smith, you're already at the podium.
Yeah, so while Josh is pulling that up, the draft budget is due at the end of January of every year. It's really just a formality, as I've stated every year that I get up to present this. We don't have enough information to make any material changes to the draft budget. I essentially copy the numbers out of the current year's working budget to start the process. We will hold many meetings between now, and I would really like to present the tentative budget at the April meeting. The May meeting, it always causes me a lot of problems. We're so close to having to do to KDE at the end of May, and with holidays, Memorial Days, it just seems like that gets to be really, really, really tight from a timing standpoint. So I hope to be able to present that at the April meeting. I'll run through the time just real quick. Josh, if you'll go down to the next slide. Yep. So the draft is due and at the end of January of every year. The tentative budget, which is the one that we'll have the most conversation about, will be due at the end of May. And then the working budget will be due in September. Next slide, please. Talks about the KRS that requires that. I'm not going to read that, but it's due by January 31st. Next slide. Again, that just tells you that I basically copied from the FY25 budget. The numbers are essentially the same. I just have to make them balance for the semantics of it to submit to KDE. Significant revenue changes. So the things that we're going to be talking about between now and April are SEEK adjustments. We will have more information as to what those are going to be by the March, April timeframe. We can start get an understanding of what the tax situation is going to look like for the fall with the assessments, any grant adjustments, and any other major revenue changes we will at least start getting some idea about. And then any expense changes, we just need to have a conversation about any salary and benefit changes that we're going to do for next year. And I'm just going to reiterate that. I said this last year with all the things that we talked about. I think it'll be very difficult for the district to do anything other than what the step increases are going to be from a financial standpoint, so that we can kind of catch up with that revenue deficit we discussed earlier. And then any debt service changes or inflationary adjustments, we'll take those things into consideration for the tentative budget. Do you have any questions for me about the draft budget?
We do not. All right. All those in favor of approving FY26 draft budget? Aye. Any opposed? No. All right, motion passes 4-1. Next, discussion items. So I wanted to put a couple things on here just because, you know, obviously starting fresh board, new, just had some things that have come up. People have shown interest, and so planning meetings have been discussed. I know that we are going to have, like we just discussed, a planning meeting automatically for the superintendent search, but I did want to institute and just talk about, this is discussion, so we're not voting on anything, but maybe quarterly planning meetings. I don't know that we need a monthly, but I think we have enough that, especially lining up with the budget talks, that maybe before the budget at the regular meeting, we can get together, gather some information. Like Mr. Smith said, we can have maybe some SEEK updates prior to the actual regular meeting. So I think that would be helpful to just have those maybe line up before the budget discussions each quarter, and then we'll have other topics that come up. I know that something else we need to look at this year are the voting districts that we tabled prior to the last election that we need to review. So I think there's going to be other things that come up that can go into those planning meetings, but I just wanted to get your all's thoughts on maybe setting up a quarterly planning meeting. So it's open to anybody.
I'm for it.
Okay. Good stuff.
Quarterly planning meetings, especially when we know we have those big things coming up, like redistricting, like superintendent search, like, budget. I think it just makes sense. Data meeting, I think that's more than quarterly there, enough for quarterly meetings. But I also do think it makes sense to have a planning meeting the week before the regular meeting. And I think it makes sense because then we have the agenda that's out early, the attachments that are out early, and folks have time to kind of ask questions. We can come to the meeting and ask questions like we did tonight, but not, have meetings that run, for hours and hours, and people just can't, hold interest that long. It's not, convenient, I think, sometimes to the public too, to stay for hours and hours, or our staff to stay for hours and hours, and then be, back at work in the morning. I just think that the planning meetings, we did that in the past, Mr. Wilson, and I just felt like they were very useful and helpful. I don't know if you want to weigh in, if you think that's something that would be useful again.
I'm not one just to meet so we can meet, but I do think the chairman's idea about quarterly meetings could be helpful. And I think it would be a good beginning. I think Ms. Springate, if we do those and they become as beneficial as you believe they will, and as I know they can be, then maybe we can discuss doing it further. But, you know, I would share that the superintendent search is going to take several meetings. And but I do believe that the quarterly is a good way to start. Okay. And then we can always expand it if necessary.
Ms. Gould, do you have any?
I think that the quarterly meetings sound very doable and necessary. I like that idea, and also being able to have the capacity to expand if we need to at a later date, I think sounds very applicable to what we need to do with this.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much. So we'll look at the dates compared to the regular meetings that line up with the budget and try to schedule some planning meetings before that, and also include the other topics that we referenced. Okay. The other discussion topic was just the old high school update, where we're sitting right now, just to get a little update for everybody on what's going on with this building, or any updates that we have now, what's moved into this building. So, Mr. Atkins, I'd like to turn that over to you.
Sure. I'd ask Mr. Asher and Mr. Smith to be available to walk through exactly how that looked when we did the DFP. We've had a couple of discussions now about the move. I would say right now we're somewhere between 60 and 65% moved over here, probably another month before it would be 100% move. And simply because of things that are going on in the district, things that it kind of be upsetting the apple cart to move during those times. So probably another month before 100% moved. But I'll turn that over to you guys if you want to just, Mr. Asher, if you want to touch. I know we touched already on the fire school that will be in place here, and Chief Rankin came and spoke about that. So it's exciting to have some space to be able to do those types of things. If you want to just touch briefly on the CTE possibilities, because going back, we have lost our connection with Fayette. They're going to allow us to complete the students that are there. However, they feel like with their new facility, much like us, they will be able to fill their slots with their students. And I can't say as I blame them to want to serve their own students. So with that being said, this space will give us an opportunity to offer some of those things. And we've already been talking to KCTCS and some other higher ed school, I guess you would say universities, schools, colleges, about possible dual credit. But I'll turn that over and let Mr. Asher talk a little bit about those.
We were interested in expanding opportunities local prior to even talking with Fayette County, but we kind of saw that on the horizon. You know, they're going to have a bright, shiny new facility, and you would expect that their enrollment locally for them would probably go up. But with that being said, we were already in discussions with our fire science and Chief Rankin coming to us, and what better way to be collaborators than to do local programs such as that. So I was involved in the process. I was not on the facilities plan committee, but was invited in on the CTE aspect. So what I joined, I want to say in January timeframe, maybe February, a meeting, just to outline our current state of CTE and our wishes to repurpose from what is this back direction back here, what is the ag classrooms, the ag shop, and then on over into band and chorus rooms. To repurpose that, we had to submit those numbers, and we're only allowed X amount of square footage. It's right around 20,000 square feet. So the first step we're taking towards that is this fire science program. You all approved the MOU with them last month. Actually just had a meeting with Chief today about what's our next steps, and that's recruitment effort of students, and a meeting next week with Mr. Smith to look at facilities back there and what we'll need. Also looking at EMT with Freeman, last name escapes me. What is it? There you go, Mr. Bailey. Met with him in a similar fashion, looking how we could do that locally, and again, utilize the space back there that I had mentioned. But that was my involvement with it, and we're, as always, excited for the opportunities to do local partnerships like that. I'm sorry, I'll field any questions on that piece.
One question I had, is there any time or expected timeline that those programs could be in place, or is it?
Fall.
Okay.
Yeah. Fire science definitely fall.
Okay.
EMT very likely could be. The only, this is state in terms of what qualifications are required to teach certain courses. We're just waiting back on that, but all signs point that we would be okay. What that means is a certified EMT as an adjunct instructor, I should say, able to teach certain classes. So we're just working out the logistics and details of that to make sure before committing. We do have that go ahead in terms of fire science, so we're able to move forward there, but looking at EMT certainly for the fall as well.
And do you have a certain amount of students that, like you mentioned, you're recruiting for that? Do you have a certain number in mind to make the program viable?
I mean, initially with fire science, we'd want to start at, and who knows, but like a class of 30. We expect with the opportunities of going to Fayette being limited now, that they'll be looking for opportunities. And again, I love the local piece. We hope that we'd be able to fill those, at least a class, if not more, of 30 plus.
Perfect.
Other questions on that?
Cool.
Some of the programs that the Lexington Partnership afforded, is there any other talk about bringing some of those back into here? I know we're starting small and we'll probably expand, but on the horizon, has there been any conversation about that?
There are. Okay, so I had 2 related meetings today. We took inventory of those students. I had the counselors at the high school do that, sat in with the principals as well. We have roughly 23 students that could finish out essentially because they've grandfathered them in, and looking at the programs they're in, welding was in there, diesel mechanic, those sort of things. So yeah, just discussion around it, but no commitment yet. But again, that we would have the space to offer those, and in satellite fashion is what we were calling the area back here that I mentioned. But definitely in discussion, and just we want opportunities for all. So if the interest is there, we want to try to provide it.
Dr. Gould, a lot of those opportunities too are offered through KCTC as dual credit, which again would lead to certifications, those types of things. So really, it's a good opportunity for us to grow that partnership with somebody right here locally, right here in town, and it's given us some space. Excuse me. They have talked to us about sending instructors here, sending students out. So those types of opportunities are certainly doable.
And one other thing, funding-wise, that I'll mention, you've heard me talk about CTE supplemental funds that the state has provided. We're in our 3rd year of that. We're guaranteed a 4th. Hopefully, they'll renew it in the next biennium. The whole purpose, big picture-wise, was workforce development. And I hope to be able to say my 2 cents if they consider that again, because it has really helped us in terms of staffing, in terms of equipment, in terms of student organization, CTSOs, and allowing them to participate and go on those trips. We've really expanded all those opportunities over these past several years using that funding. Other questions related to CTE and the use of this building? All right, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Asher.
I would just add, it also provides auxiliary gymnasium space. It provides auxiliary wrestling space, cheerleading space. I mean, we have a huge demand for space for a lot of our athletic and extracurricular activities. The repurposing of the building allows that to continue to happen, and they're making considerable use of that so far. So that's one of the positives. But just to reiterate on the process, since we have a couple of new board members, so the DFP plan is something very similar to what you just listened from Mr. Martin. KSB provides a facilitator. There's a very strict regimented set of rules that we have to follow to go through. The facility needs, it's not just arbitrary as to what I or Mr. Atkins or whoever would think the district needs. There are a lot of rules around that we go through. It was about a year process from start to finish, and we really didn't do anything unique versus what was in the facility plan prior to. I mean, the previous facility plan that was created had the repurposing of this building as for the CTE. I think we added on to that a little bit. It also had the repurposing for the central office. The only tweak I think that we suggested was that if we're going to make any kind of consolidation with the preschool, this would probably be place for it at some point if that's determined to do that. But we went through the plan, took about a year. The plan was approved 5-0 by the previous iteration of the board to do that. We began meeting as a cabinet administrative team back in the summer and had several meetings and kind of laid out the space so that everyone was happy with the allocation of space that they were having, along with the conversations with CTE. And I think there's a lot of excitement in the central office from a workplace standpoint. I think people, and you know, we love our old existing building, but it was really tight for the number of folks that we had working in there and the number of things that we had going on. And I think it's just been a very, very positive transition so far. We don't have everyone over here yet, as Mr. Atkins mentioned, but we're working on that. And so that's kind of where we're at. We started right after the students left from here at the Christmas break, getting some furniture out of the way, you know, with surplus. You guys have seen the surplus listing that I've given to you. We've tried to repurpose as much of that as anyone needed at the schools and other departments. So we'll be surplusing anything that's unnecessary at the end of the day with those items. But otherwise, that's where we're at, I think, as of today. Is there any questions you have for me? I'll just say, you know, that's finances are always a topic. We spent very little in the way of finances with making this happen. That was one of the things that when I started here in May of 2022, that, you know, there was all this stuff that needed to be done to this building. And I have a pretty extensive facilities background, and we started really talking and asking questions. And, you know, it's a 60-year-old building, and it needs a little bit of tender loving care, but I don't think there's anything hugely in the way of a need for finances immediately to make the building to continue to be useful to the district.
That is it okay if I ask a question?
Yep, absolutely.
That was going to be one of my questions, just what kind of cost are we looking at to do that? What did you say was the time frame for the full transition for all of central office staff to be here?
Yeah, I mean, as Mr. Atkins said, in the next month, we should have everything transitioned over.
And what about the plans for the Pisgah building, the existing Board of Education building? That is not something that we've talked about yet, so when will that come?
There's not really a plan for that. I know everybody's talking about, Mr. Atkins is gonna sell the building. Mr. Atkins can't sell anything. The only people that can sell anything in Woodford County that belongs to the public school system is the board. So Mr. Atkins has no plans. So really, that's something left up to you guys to discuss.
Because I know we've talked about not leaving buildings empty. That was one of the concerns about this space.
That was a big concern about this building, yeah.
And I know, you know, there are certain steps for us to look at. Once everybody's out of that building, I know we'll need to get an appraisal of that building. So I think, and maybe next month at the regular meeting will be a good time to talk about some of that when you're completely out of it. But what are the steps to, if we decide to sell that property, what are the steps that we need to do to go that route?
The liquidation steps for a school district property are, you have it appraised, as you mentioned, and if you can sell it for the fair market value, you can sell it outright to any buyer of that property. If you can't get the fair market value as established by the appraisal, then you'd have to go through the auction process. Now, we have a lot of availability to set criteria. You know, we can set a minimum price. We can do similar things to what you would do in the private industry to auction off something. But it basically follows those steps. There was something, I'm sorry, but that's essentially the steps. There's something I was going to say about that, and it left my mind. But after we have it appraised and we understand the value of it, I think we could determine what we're going to do moving forward from a liquidation.
KDE also has to approve the sale.
Yeah, that's true.
They wouldn't let you sell a piece of property like that for $100,000.
Yeah.
You would have to sell it either, you know, fair market value. I've seen it go back three times to sell properties in Eastern Kentucky, and they would finally approve it. But yeah, they would have to approve what it sells for, and it would have to be either probably the asking, or the appraisal value or above.
And I would just say, I think that we probably need to have a discussion with the attorney that has talked with us about that property over the years, because there are absolutely some deed restrictions and some things that we've been told about in the past that probably need to be discussed.
That was what I was going to mention. I know it slipped my mind for the moment, but so we have had follow-up on that. I know that previously someone did a title search and they thought that there could be title and deed restrictions, that it had to be sold for educational purposes or some of those types of things, but we've done an extensive title search on that, and that's not accurate. The documentation that had to be filed to make that a permanent thing had to be filed like prior to 1952 or something, and those documents were not filed. So
Is this something we could possibly add to our agenda moving forward, just to have an update, a regular update?
Yeah, I think what we can do, because I would imagine that we would have to vote to start the appraisal process, right? We would have to vote to have, or no?
I don't think you need to vote to get the appraisal.
Okay.
To take any action on it, right?
Sure.
Then certainly the board would need to vote on that. I mean, getting the appraisal just tells you what's the building
Sure.
worth. And
Okay.
to me, if you all are going to vote, you want to have that in front of you. You want
Sure.
to know what your options are. So I don't think there's a vote just to get the appraisal,
Okay.
but you will need a vote, obviously, to do anything with the building.
Okay.
Yeah. And certainly, if there are questions about the deed restrictions and things like that, I would be more than happy to have the person from our real estate team who looked into that, who can probably talk about that much more intelligently than I can. If we can arrange in advance, then they can be present at the meeting, address questions you all have about that and what the process looks like for making sure,
Sure.
what is and isn't there.
And maybe just what our options are. Like,
Yeah.
these are our options. We can do this with this property, we can do that, we can,
Right.
It would be good to just know what decisions we need to make,
Right.
and then we can take steps to begin.
So, and it sounds like step one is just get the appraisal so we have the information. So what is the process of just getting the appraisal done?
So
If it doesn't take a board vote, what's stopping us from getting that?
They're vendors that I've dealt with in the past. We would just contact them, do a purchase order, have the appraisal done. That typically takes approximately a month, typically. So, I possibly could get an appraisal back by the February board meeting. It'd probably be the March, but I can go that route.
And would it make sense to wait until you're completely out of that building to get that, or does that matter?
I don't think that would impact the appraisal value, so.
Okay.
Well, I do think it would be important to kind of have a discussion with the community, and, I don't want to over-forum people to death, but I do think that folks probably have some input and some ideas and would like to be heard about, that property before we move forward with any decisions. Do you know how much this appraisal would cost?
Well, it's probably a couple $1,000s.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question about the athletic spaces? Is there a plan for upkeep of, say, the old practice field for football and accessibility to that? Are they planning on moving the practice facility that they constructed over to the new space, or is that going to be remaining here? And then, of course, like upkeep costs with like the gym and that sort of thing. I absolutely agree. We need this space for our athletics. We've got to have it. We're busting at the seams already, of course, and additional spaces, of course, have been on the way. But whoever was here on Monday night last week, I believe it was, where there was cheerleaders, in the cafeteria, other people in the gym, people using this space. Are we going to be able to have accessibility to the outdoor spaces as well, is what I'm asking, I guess.
Yeah, I spoke to the booster club that gave the indoor practice facility, and he said as long as we're going to have activity at this campus, that they would assume leave that here for at least the foreseeable future. If that were to be moved, I think that they do typically, or not typically, they own that structure, and so there would have to be some type of agreement if the district were going to cover any costs as far as relocating that, but they do own that facility and have indicated that they would like to leave it here as long as there's going to be activity on this campus. And I said, that's my understanding, and I don't see any reason why that would ever be problematic. As far as the field, I mean, They would have use of that field anytime that they wanted to use it. The gym, same. As far as the upkeep, I mean, there's going to be costs that the district are going to have to maintain for whatever cost that would come up with that. You know, who's to say how much, but I mean, it should be minimum under normal circumstances, heating, air, electric. We've tried to put I would like to put some additional controls. Wouldn't be terribly expensive, but at some point, just around electric use in those areas to make sure we have occupancy sensors that cut lights on and off when somebody's not in the building, that sort of thing, so.
Anybody have anything else? All right. Thank you. I don't have to close discussion. Do I have? Okay.
No, you can just say we're moving on to the
All
next.
right, moving on. Perfect. Let's see. Fundraiser report, right? So I have a motion to approve the fundraiser report.
Those are information items.
Oh,
only,
information
so
item. Good.
Those are listed on the agenda, but you don't need to take any action on those.
Perfect. All right. So other business?
None.
No? All right. Motion to go into executive session for discussion on pending litigation pursuant to KRS 61.810(1)(c).
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion by Mr. Wilson,
Second.
second by Ms. McCowan. All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move we return
Alright.
from executive session.
Second.
All right. Motion by Mr. Wilson, second by Ms. McCowan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, I move to allow Don Morgan to settle the matter discussed in executive session in his discretion if settlement is in the best interest of the board.
Second.
All right. Second by Ms. Springate. All right. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Second.
So moved. All right. Second by Ms. McCowan. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right.
Mr. Chairman, well done on your first meeting.
Thank
sir.
you very much. Thank you very much.